Well, welcome to another episode of the Grazing Sheep Podcast. I'm your host, Big Tom Perkins, along with Dr. Cameron Miley. And Cam, you and I just got back from the Ohio Shepherds Symposium over there in
We
Wooster,
did,
Ohio,
yeah.
right
And
there.
that's a conference that just state association, state sheep association. This was actually, I believe, the 75th
I think so.
uh, anniversary of the Ohio Sheep Improvement Association. So got my little memory booklet, kind of 75 yearbook. And it was really fun to flip through and just kind of see people that are still involved today and were involved early on as well. And to see some of those old pictures, or there's some scholarships that are named after people that were before my time, and to be able to see kind of what those people looked like, what they were doing, is just a nice thing to kind of commemorate and look back on. Um, I know one of the things that they talked about with the Young Shepherd uh, group after the main event was, they're trying to get this Young Shepherd program up and going so that by the hundredth anniversary, uh, they've got people that were involved, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And in that group, it's where you're going to find your young shepherds that are hopefully stepping up to fill in some of those uh, big shoes to fill. So, yeah, this is an event that you've attended now for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and
Three or
not
four,
too far down the road for you to get to.
couple hours. I like it for several reasons. The hotel I end up staying at is the internet's super fast there
Yeah,
compared
so you can get stuff
compared to here.
uploaded.
So I had 12 videos to upload, and I think within an hour and a half I was done. I couldn't believe I was like,
Really,
I had more videos ready. There, it was just super fast. It was amazing compared to here, where if I load a video, it takes anywhere from 22 to 23 hours to load. There, it took 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. Major difference in internet speed.
right, right,
And
right.
And I was warm the entire time I was there. And my house is freezing. It's cold. Always cold in my house. But that's not the main reasons I go. The main reasons I go is there's just lots of people there that I get to see once a year. And you get to hang out with them and talk and catch up. And then there's always some interesting programming, that they've got lined up. And
Yeah, so unfortunately, I was only able to make it for the second half, and it was a weekend of firsts for me. So I was flying back from the National Grazing Lands Coalition, their annual convention, and first time I have ever missed a flight. And we sat on the runway there in Dallas Fort Worth for an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes, while I'm watching my plane, pull out of the gate and leave, watch it take off from my phone, and going, well, this is not good. And I was already supposed to get back, late
yeah,
on that Friday evening. So got a hold of the individuals there because I was supposed to speak in the morning on Saturday, and they were gracious enough to maneuver and change some speakers around, and but made it for lunch. And that was the big ticket item that I was after. So, uh, and it was really good. Whoever they had, I didn't get the catering company, but they did a phenomenal job with the lamb, and it's something that when you show up and you're talking about sheep, it is nice to have lamb on the menu, and whoever prepared it did a really nice job.
well, I'll tell you, their breakfast was every bit as good.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Their main thing was biscuits and gravy, and of course they had potatoes and fried potatoes and a bunch of stuff. It was phenomenal. It was
Did
probably
the
the best meal
gravy?
all the years I've gone. That was the best meal both those meals, lunch and breakfast. They were
Did the
fantastic.
gravy have lamb sausage in it?
I'm assuming that it did.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
that would have been my guess. All the lamb sausage I've ever had has always tasted like sausage, so I couldn't really
Okay.
tell that major difference in the sausage. I had some lamb done up in breakfast sausages, and they just taste like breakfast sausages. I can't
Right.
really notice the difference is that it's lamb or whatever, pork or whatever. But yeah, it was phenomenal. I went back for seconds. And then they had some snacks out through the day, and the daggum snacks were good too.
Yeah. Yeah. So if nothing else, food
The food was
was
fantastic.
evaluated by both of us and we
Yeah,
can check that box off.
yep, they had some programs there too. They had a solar grazing panel. They had a couple of producers who are actually solar grazers answer some questions, and then I guess industry people that were in solar. And it was interesting, I guess, to hear both perspectives from that. But everybody
Yeah.
did kind of seemed as though they were in tune with each other. But I guess the solar people, for lack of a better term, um, they were, they had said that they learned a lot from the shepherds that were grazing because they basically said, we don't know anything about sheep, so the shepherds have to come to them and say, this is what we need, or this isn't going to work because of this, or, we got to change something, and so they acted as though they were pretty grateful that the shepherds were there and willing to talk to them and tell them what they needed and so on. Because I've heard lots
Yeah,
of
and
horror
that's
stories
probably
through the years, last couple of years. But
yeah,
I think it's all kind of a learning process on both sides.
it is. And this is probably a topic that we'll look to dive into pretty deep in 2025. But when you think about the meshing of two very different industries, the
Yep,
sheep industry and agriculture and energy production, and specific, not just, traditional forms of energy production, but now renewable forms in the form of solar energy. It's something that two very different worlds colliding and really trying to create a relationship that's beneficial for both parties. A lot of education, to your point, on both sides.
yep,
So that's encouraging to hear. Like I said, I wasn't able to attend, but had a lot of good discussion with the people that were there and present, both on the panel and were listening. And I think it's nice when you can present some of the industry, solar energy industry facts to a group of sheep producers. I know one of the questions you had mentioned that they were getting asked was, what are the height requirements on grass? And ultimately, we remember that we're not operating on the home farm
yep,
anymore. So if I want to go out and stockpile 40 inches worth of grass, well, I can't necessarily do that because it's not my ground. You're in the game of vegetation management and a service geared industry, a service geared business venture, and so it's very different than how you would just manage sheep on your own operation,
yeah,
and that's a challenge I think for a lot of producers.
yeah. They were saying that contract may only allow for 20 inches of growth, and
Right,
you hit that 20-inch mark, you better be getting sheep in there, or
right.
you're in violation of your contract.
Yeah, and when you look at it, realistically, 20 inches, if everywhere is 20 inches, then
Yeah,
you really need a sheep in there when everything was 14 inches, so
yeah,
that when you're making your final pass,
yep,
you're not over 20 inches. There's a lot of math and just grazing sense that goes into um, again, a service geared business model that I think a lot of times we take for granted how much uh, ability we have on our own to kind of call our own shots. And we have a reason why we do. Most of us have a reason why we do it.
yeah,
And even if it's not a good reason, we we all have a reason why we do what we do. with those grazing allotments. But
Well,
yeah, I
I
think that
know
was
just talking to people in the sheep industry who are not in the solar industry, they have a hard time wrapping their head around the fact that you're not there to raise sheep, you're there to control
mm,
vegetation. Um, and they just can't grasp that. That's
yeah.
you're it's a completely different reason why you're there with sheep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you kind of have to scrap your mindset of I'm just raising sheep.
Yeah.
To your point, like just you reassess what you're doing and where you're being paid and try to maximize both outputs. I look at it as an opportunity to make money on that service-based side of the vegetation management, but also have access to acreage that I didn't have access to before,
Yeah.
to expand an operation. And that's exciting. Granted, it does not, you are not just sitting there printing money. There's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of detail-oriented work, logistical, nightmare type work that you're working through. Um, that there's a lot of challenges and a whole host of topics that we can get into. Um, and it's exciting. I do think it was timely for Ohio to kind of look at having that panel of industry folks, of sheep industry folks, and having an opportunity for people to ask questions. Because when you look at Ohio and where they're sitting at projected numbers of energy production, um, we're going to need a lot of electricity in a very short period of time, and
Yep.
it's from a whole host of reasons. So we'll see what happens, but if we do have additional installation of solar, I'm of the opinion that I want to see sheep underneath
Yep.
those panels. So regardless of whether we want panels or not, if they are there, I'd really like to see sheep underneath them.
Yeah, I think for the sake of agriculture, I think it's a good combination. I would rather see
Yeah,
these things in solar panels as opposed to houses, for sure. You know,
right. And
I think
that's
the other thing
really,
you need to remember is that the farmer typically still owns this ground. They've not lost this
oh
ground.
yeah,
It's still in the
Y-
family and that kind of a thing.
majority of those are lease agreements, and
Yep.
um, like you said, in 30 years they come out of that solar installation, and um, it's still an owned piece of property by that family. By maybe the next generation wants to take it over and continue to farm or start up that a term I had heard in Arizona was skip generation
Yeah.
farming. So maybe two generations ago, um, it was part of the family dynamic and had a generation that wasn't interested or two that weren't interested, and then finally that third or fourth generation is passionate about it. And it's like, oh, just a term I wasn't familiar with, but made a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, that's true. I'd never heard that term before either, but I know lots of instances where the grandfather farmed it, the his children, moved away, and then the grandkids are interested in it, and they come back to do something
Right,
with it. So
right.
I think
And
that's good. It keeps it in the family, and they have that opportunity to do something with it. But I think overall, it was a good symposium. Um, like I say, it's only a couple hours from home, so it's nice to run over there, and I just enjoy catching up with people that I don't get to see that often, and you always make some new contacts and talk to some new people, and I know we're going in line, and people are coming up and saying, "Hey, aren't you the guy from the podcast?"
yeah, right,
That's always
right.
that's always a fun thing too, and
Yeah,
I just trimmed my beard up, and so I thought I'd be
you did.
incognito, but
You did.
people
It
still
was
do.
short. I had a couple people come up to me like, I didn't even recognize Tom, but I was like, yeah, he trimmed it back. It looks nice. But
Yeah.
probably the best talk of the day. I don't know who gave the sustainability in the sheep industry talk, but that one was really, really good.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm just kidding because that was one that I delivered.
I know.
But the that was a fun discussion to have. And I'm not serious on that being the best one. But personal favorite, I thought Nick Forrest did a really nice job at the end of the day. Always appreciate. Yeah, he had some good stories on halal slaughter and selling directly off the farm uh, to ethnic buyers and situations that you've heard about, and it was kind of nice to put a face with the story that was kind of crazy, but um, had some good samples of lamb that I'd say it'd be very easy to recreate at home in your own kitchen. That was one of the people when you go through that commemorative Ohio Sheep Improvement Association book.
Yeah,
One of the people that showed up in that book was Nick Forrest, and um, his wife, I believe Kathy is her name. I could be wrong on that, but uh, they were in that book from a long, long time ago, and so you see someone's passion for promoting the sheep industry and specifically the consumer side of the industry. It's always exciting to see, and have I've been able to find them at a couple of different events across the country, and just watching them interact. It's funny to me how they interact with sheep people in Ohio is different than how they interact with consumers in another region.
yeah.
Um,
So
because you can
to
tell
let
they feel
people
like,
know, just to let people know, this is a couple that goes around to different events and actually cooks lamb at these events. And they
yes.
show people how to cook lamb, different, different cuts of lamb, tons of different recipes, and most of them are incredibly easy. And then they hand all these samples out for people that, and a lot of people have never had lamb before. He had some kind of lamb meatball. I can't remember what the heck it was, but it was
I
phenomenal.
think Italian, and it had a like tomato-based sauce with it.
Yeah, they were incredible. I wanted to go
Yep.
back and get more of those, but, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, this is what they do. They travel around to these different events and different grocery stores and so on, and they cook this lamb and they show people how to cook it and how easy it is, and they keep their recipes super simple, and I think it's extremely impactful. And yeah, there needs to be somebody else coming up doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and what was cool, again, like have seen them in some other states, some other more consumer facing events, and do a phenomenal job there. But what I enjoyed was you could tell they were comfortable
Yeah.
here. Like
Oh
this
yeah.
is their home state with people that they're familiar with. And so just to see them kind of let loose and talk with friends in the room uh was really enjoyable, and that was fun to see. And then you had mentioned the afternoon, so you opted out of the Young Shepherds group. That Saturday evening we actually went out and toured a sheep facility and then ate dinner. But Tom opted for the R&R rest and relaxation route.
Well,
But
I always feel kind of odd going to the young shepherds thing. I'm 63 years old. I'm not a young shepherd, even
young
though
at heart
young at heart
shepherds,
maybe, and haven't been in the sheep business for that, for very long. Kind of my understanding, the idea of the young shepherds thing was so that young shepherds could exchange ideas back and forth, and they didn't have to listen to some guy's been doing it for 50 years who said, no, you can't do it that way. You have to do it this way.
right?
Yeah. Kind of
Right.
a thing. And that makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm, I work and help people with their grazing plans and so on. And you'll always have that old guy standing there saying, "No, you can't do it that way. We've always done it this way."
Right.
And my dad,
Yep.
one of those too. And I always try not to be that person. And with CJ here on the farm, every once in a while he'll come up with something, and right away I want to say, "Well, I tried that and it didn't work," but you know,
Right.
So usually I do tell him what happened in my situation, but I'm more than willing to try it again. If you think you can do it, think you can tweak it
Right.
different, I'm more than willing to try it.
Well, and
But
there's value, I think, to sharing those experiences of, oh, it didn't work. Well, maybe the concept will work in the future with a different execution. And so
right,
what you just mentioned on, well, if we tweak it a couple areas and maybe then we can pull it off. I think that's fine. But there is value in knowing some of those past mistakes from those shepherds that have unfortunately experienced those mistakes.
yeah,
Um, and it was I don't have their name in front of me, and I know I would butcher it anyway. But we drove over to Bucyrus, and I'm trying to remember maybe 28 people. Just I think just under 30 people were there in attendance, and um, ran over and beautiful barn over in Bucyrus, Ohio. I think it was 80 wide by 208. I mean, a big,
wow,
big barn. Confinement operation from a family that mostly their core operation is row crop agriculture, but had some crossbred hair type ewes. They called them Katahdin Dorper crosses. I'd probably call them Dorper cross hair sheep, pretty heavy on the Dorper influence.
okay,
Uh, but beautiful sheep that were in a beautiful barn, and certainly can have some barn envy when you see that much space under roof. And
yeah,
you go, man, think of what, the best part of going there. And I don't know when people open up their operation or their home to somebody else, if they know that they're opening it up to just like people nitpicking ev-
yeah,
everything. But like the first thing you do is, man, this is nice. I would do this with this and this with this, and I
yeah,
do this differently. But that's the value of going and seeing these places. And I've yet to go anywhere that I've said, like, wow, this is perfect. I wouldn't change anything for the way that I want to pursue our operation.
yeah,
There have been some places I've been to that you don't say a whole lot
yeah.
to yourself, but there's always something that just personal preference. You'd say, oh, I'd maybe tweak that a little bit here or a little bit there, but
I
um,
think on the other side of it too, though, is I've been to lots of those kind of places, and even just out, grazing or pasture walks. You see things you're like, oh, I never thought of trying that. I bet that would work at home.
yep.
Or
Oh yeah.
there's just lots of little ideas that you haven't thought of yet, and it just makes sense. And if you don't go to
Oh
these things, you don't see them. I would have gone, but I heard we weren't getting back till 10 o'clock, and that was going to be late for
yeah.
man.
Yeah, it was a late night for sure. And you're exactly right. You go and you pick up those pieces and you say, "Oh, I would do this." It goes both ways. You pick up the good, you dismiss the what you view as bad.
Yep.
Um, Obviously not there. Like this were not public conversations with with the owners of that establishment of, "Oh, well, you guys should have done it this way." Like there'd be nothing worse
Yeah.
than having somebody come in and just tell you how terrible you you set up the place.
Well,
And I
I'm sure too that when they were all done with it and worked in it for a while, they found things they wish they'd have done differently.
well, and that's the
I
thing.
think
I think
everybody does.
the first year that they've been in this barn,
Okay.
um, and so there were a couple of questions that people had asked, and they said, honestly, we have not been in here long enough for me to like really tell you what I would change.
Yeah.
Um,
Were they
and
feeding
but
a
you're
TMR?
right.
Were they
They
feeding a
were
TMR
feeding a
rat?
TMR. I believe they were right at 400 ewes. The barn they said could hold right around 600 ewes, and the number that was thrown out was sorghum sedan 35 acres. So they're feeding a sorghum sedan silage uh, with a balancer pellet. That 35 acres to feed 400 ewes really is not bad. That kind of tracks along with corn silage. And if you're asking, well, why wouldn't they go with the corn silage route? They had mentioned that with their other grain, enterprises, they're able to get the sorghum sudan in after the wheat
Yeah.
and actually double crop some of
Right.
those fields into, uh, pulling wheat off, and then they're pulling off their planting and then pulling off their sorghum sudan, single cutting as silage in the fall of the year. Which again, when we're talking about maximizing acreage, all you had to do in that instance was have the square footage, have the capital to put the barn up. But those 35 acres were acres that you were already using.
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily pulling away. Yeah, you're pulling some nutrients out and need to replace those, but I'd like to think that coming out of that barn, you'd be able to do that. So it was just an interesting model of kind of stacking an enterprise on top of something that already exists. And so that was it was great to hear from him on that. And then um, some people had asked on accelerated lambing because I'm of the opinion if you have infrastructure like that, the only way to get it paid off in a timely manner is to maximize your output.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's really what in any animal agriculture, what we're looking at doing when we're trying to put a dent in this infrastructure costs. But what was the answer to that question was because of the row crop side of the business, they just don't have the labor and time right now to pursue an accelerated system with those times a year that maybe fall around a harvest event or a planting
Yeah.
event, which I thought was a fair answer.
Yep.
That's something that the family has a business that's operating and working. So you're not going to disrupt the the arm of the business that's the breadwinner and creating significant income for the rest of the family.
Hmm.
Um, so it was a good event to run out there and visit with that family and just talk through some of the items you changed, some of the things you liked about the building with other young sheep producers, and then um, ended up eating at a Greek restaurant there on the way back and had some gyros and lamb inspired dishes and very good food and just a good conversation that surrounded that as always.
Hmm.
So it was fun. It was a fun weekend altogether.
Yeah. I wish I hadn't been so wore out. I would have liked to go into that.
Yeah, I was dragging pretty hard by
Yeah.
by
Well,
the end
yeah.
of it, and then I ended up driving home after that. So it made for a late night. That was a busy weekend, and um, still had to come home and get fence put up that Sunday afternoon, and don't love to do that, but sheep have officially been pushed out of the barn for some winter grazing, minimizing hay feeding for 2024, early 25. We're going to
Okay.
see how it works. I know they're not real happy out there today. It's like 54 degrees and rainy.
Yeah.
At least it's 54 degrees. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
rain,
They were calling for freezing rain.
yeah, not by us, thankfully.
Yeah, we didn't get any of that. It hovered right around 33, 34, and just kind of drizzled. And I moved sheep yesterday afternoon. I thought, oh, these guys are going to be miserable. They didn't seem to be that bad off. Every time
Good.
I went out, they were all kind of laying down and chewing cuds, and they all got up and do that sheep shake where the water goes
Yep.
flying everywhere. And
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and this is where, my mindset, this is completely opposite to what I'm used to doing.
yeah,
Christmas, first of the year, we're looking at moving sheep back inside. Um, we've already grazed our stockpile, moving them inside for that late gestation ration and try to get those sheep fed up a little bit before lactation. And now we're in a phase of minimizing our inputs on the hay side of things. So what vegetation is out there and can we graze it? And if it's out there, and we answer that first question, the answer of can we graze it is yes. We're gonna try. And so we're gonna push through that stuff pretty hard. And my goal, we'll see if we can hit it, but like February 1st, if weather permits, um, is the date to move sheep back in the barn and get them fed for a late February lambing
Yeah.
event. But it's always, what we've seen from the gestation and health of those ewes, if we can keep ewes outside as long as possible and keep them moving, uh, our lambing season just goes uh, much easier than if we coop them up in a barn for 2, 3 months beforehand. So uh, we're gonna we're gonna see what happens, but if we get dumped on with snow, probably
Oh
got to
yeah.
pull them in and
Yep. That's
not
always
worth being out there for the
that.
8 inches of grass we're trying to graze.
Yeah, that could be problematic. I chose Saturday. I had two choices: was to work some sheep. I've got about 15 lambs that ewe lambs, I guess, that I was going to gather up, and we are going to put them on a little bit of corn and probably run them over to Mount Hope or get them sold outright, one or the other. And it was either that or cut firewood. And my firewood supply, I'm severely behind in firewood. And my firewood supply is
Oh no.
pretty low, and it's pretty cold in this house as it is. And I was like, oh, maybe we better go cut some firewood. So we opted to do that instead of moving some sheep around. But just that small group's lambing out, but everybody else is out on pasture. And if I continue grazing this big group, which won't happen because I've got to bring some in in the next couple of weeks uh, to get them ready for lambing in February. But uh, as it stands now, I've got enough pasture till February. When I bring that next group in, that'll probably push us out past the end of March, but we'll just have to see from there. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. Certainly have some grass envy. Had barn envy there a couple weeks ago, but now have
yeah,
some grass envy
now you got crack
of
envy. Well,
of
we don't
seeing.
have definitely don't have the stockpile we'd like to have. It got so dry there in the fall, but we're going to graze what's there and just keep working our way through. And we might end up doing some bale grazing. I've been talking about this the last couple of years, and we managed to not have to bale graze, but we'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah,
So
cover your
coming up on
two
our
whole
time.
acres.
What's that?
I said cover 2 whole acres with your
That's
sheep.
probably
Well,
all
great.
will happen. But I've got a
Right.
couple small pastures I want to renovate, and that would be the pastures
Yep.
in. So we'll see what happens. So it's been good catching up with you. It was fun talking to you last week in person, but it'll be a while before
Right.
before you and I are in the same place again. But we'll talk about some of that probably next week. So, well, it's been good catching up with you. Thank you again for listening to another episode of the Grazing Sheep Podcast. There's a YouTube channel, there's a Facebook page. Got any questions or comments, you can reach out to me at bigtomperkins@gmail.com. I was looking this morning and realized I got about 8 emails I haven't answered yet. And
Oh,
one's about 3 weeks old. So if you're that person, I apologize now.
oh no.
Try to
Oh
spend
no.
the next couple of days sitting down and answering some of those. I don't know how I got so far behind, but I did. So, all right, Cameron, I will catch up with you next week.
Sounds good, Tom. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.